Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about mind and body in modern philosophy. And this concept of mind and body in modern Western philosophy is very important because we are going to deal with two major problems which relates to the nature of reality. And that is monism and dualism. That is, we are going to talk about. This monism and dualism could be explained by the interrelation between mind and body. And for explaining this interrelation, we have different theories which are going to cover their interactions. So, first of all, it is not a surprise anymore that many of the philosophers has talked about the nature of man, and it has surprised the man itself about the nature of reality because it is consisting of full of contradictions. The mind and body seems very simple to us, but it is not at all simple. These are called the substance, and it is also said that one or the other way, this both has an effect on each other. Now we have one concept that is dualistic. Dualistic traditions, it is like we have a belief in both mind and body. That means we have a belief in both the matter and the process of thinking. Now, this dualistic approach increases our problem of understanding reality because now we have the two problems. Before we had the one problem, but now we have the two problems. So let us see up to Descartes. So Descartes, what he says about the dualism, what he says about the substance. Now, the mind-body problem, that is how the mind and the body are interrelated, and this is the central problem in philosophy of mind. Now, this major problem has been discussed by Descartes also, and he has tried to find out that what is the major problem and what is the major concern regarding this mind and body. And for long in the history of philosophy, this mind and body problem has existed, and this has quite influenced the modern period also. So, what is this basic problem? The basic problem is the mind a substance or is the body a substance? Or both the mind and body would be considered as the substance. So, this is the basic problem, this is the major problem. And for solving this problem, we have people, philosopher like Aristotle, who has tried to find out or figure out the ultimate nature of reality, that what is the reality, what does it comprises of. And here, when we considered about Descartes, Descartes says that reality is dualistic. That means it has both the mind and the body. And this has been explored in the Descartes writing, that is Cartesian writing. So he says that because we are able to doubt on each and every thing unless and until we reach a certainty, and therefore we can say that this process of doubting defines the process of thinking, because there is a process of thinking and obviously there is a mind. So mind is important for inquiry. When we have mind, we can inquire, we can set up the strong belief, or we can just reject the strongly held belief that was considered before. And with this thing, we can also figure it out that we have something called some matter or something about which we think, and this matter is called the extended substance. This is an extended body. This body consists of like two or more atoms or two or more molecules. Likewise, this is constructed, and this is based on the material laws. So by this laws of matter, we can see that objects are in the motion. And to understand the motion and to understand the matter in an overall way, we should have something called as mind, which is a thinking being. So to understand the extended being, we have to have this thinking being. So this mind and body, they have to work together. They cannot work separately. And because they have to work together, And therefore, we cannot say that only mind is real or only body is real, or we cannot say that mind is not real and body is real. So this is what we cannot say. Like we have seen that in Charvaka philosophy, Charvaka system has not considered uh, anything which could not be perceived. Body could be perceived, and therefore body could be real. And we have also seen that in other system, the mind has only been considered as the true, and the body has not been considered as the true. And this is the reason we have got a gap between the subject and the object relation in the knowledge system, that is the epistemology. And this is the reason we have to study this mind and body, and how this mind and body thing gives us two different approaches. So, here, what we understood by Descartes is that he believes in both mind and body, and he also believes that mind and body works together. So this is a kind of interaction, and therefore it is considered under the interactionism, where both mind and bodies are connecting and interacting with each other, and so they are formulating some ideas and giving us some form of new knowledge. Now, in this Western world, we have these two approaches, which is monism and dualism. These are two important approaches which is going to solve the mind body problem. So, what was the problem? Once again, there was a problem that do we consider mind as the ultimate reality, or we consider body as the ultimate reality? So, this was the problem. And for solving this problem, we have two approaches, monism and dualism. Now, let us see what is this monism. So, monism comes from the Greek word monas, which means one. And this monism reflects the strong argument that this mind and body are not ontologically distinct entities. And this was also first advocated by Parmenides in the West and in the 17th century. So, this thought was also considered by Baruch Spinoza. So, this thought is like a thought where the physicalists believe that these physical theories exist, and the mind and its properties will be explained eventually as the physical theories. So whatever is existing, that is a physical, and whatever is not existing, that could only be explained by the physical thing only. But we have the idealistic view also. Idealistic view considered that mind is all that there is, and the external world is either the mind or the illusion created by the mind. So this is what idealists will say. And so we have these two different approaches. One consider the physical theory, other consider the idealistic theory. So as a monistic view, we will either consider this idealistic theory, or we consider the physical theory. So in response to this mind body problem, here, monism says that there are no two distinct substances. The possibility of having two distinct substances is rejected. And so we have either one body or we have one mind, but we don't have both this thing. So according to physicalism, the physical thing, the matter thing, materialistic thing will explain the non-physical world. And according to idealistic, the mental thing, the mind thing will explain the physical realities. So this is what is considered by monism. So let us see once again the physicalism. Physicalism, the theory which proposes that everything is physical, and everything, whatever we see around is physical, the actual world, the universe, and everything contains in it, they have got a certain condition, and that condition too is called physical. So, physicalists would not deny that any items in the world is physical. So whatever we see, whatever like biological thing we perceive, psychological thing or moral or social, everything is ultimately related to the physical, and that is what physicalism is sure about. So here one example is there. If we consider two pictures on a computer screen composed of pixels, we can say that the pictures supervene on the pixels. Or if we were to analyze closely a painting, going closer to it, we no longer see the painting but the brush strokes. So what we see actually is a larger picture, but ultimately this larger picture comprises of many small pictures. And so we have two possible realities or theories. One is reductive and the second is non-reductive. Reductive says that every mental concept can be reduced somehow or other to a physical concept. So whatever we see around, we can connect it ultimately to the physical concept. And there are non-deductive theories which says that instead of trying to reduce the mental to the physical, the mental supervenes on the physical. So mental, like everything we reduce the physical things, ultimately the mental things would be there. So this is a kind of reductive and non-reductive theories which tries to explain the concept of physicalism. Now, after this thing, we have identity theory, which says that identity of the mind holds that states and process of the minds are identical to the states and process of the brain. So whatever is happening in the brain, that same thing is happening in the mind. So if we feel pain somewhere in the body, then it is appropriate activity that is going on in the brain. And if we feel love for someone, then it is the same thing which is going on in the another state in the brain. So mind is very much identical to the brain. So when we experience something green, does it mean that the brain state is green too? Does not make much sense. Mind and brain remains a matter of identifying processes. So they'll help us to identify the being, the non-being, the matter, the spirit, the subject, the object, and all this thing. So this identity theory of mind is to the effect that these experiences just are brain processes. So whatever we consider around, they are just the brain processes and that are not something which is coming out of the mind. And how these brain processes are developing? These brain processes are developing because we are ultimately related to the physical world. So this is what identity theory reveals. And now we have functionalism. Now what is this functionalism? Functionalism, it's like a questioning as to how rather than what. So whenever we ponder on the process, the function of the mind or how the mind works, then only we will be able to distinguish it from the body, because the functioning of the body is way too different than the mind. So the according to functionalism, which is saying that something, a mental state of a particular type does not depend on its internal constitution, but rather on the way it functions. So whatever mental states we have, it does not depends upon whatever internal changes we are dealing with, but it depends on the functions or the role it plays in the system of which it is a part. So this is a philosophical thesis about the nature of mental state, and these theories suggest that mental states can be identified with the function they have on behavior. So by looking on the behavior, we can identify the mental states. So we don't need to question about what a mental state is, what it is composed of, where it could be found, because we can call it mental, and we have to focus on what it does. And this only will help us to identify or to know the gaps which is there between mind and body. Now, other approaches to understand the mind and body thing is eliminatism. Eliminate. The eliminative materialism or eliminativism. This is a radical claim that many of our common sense understanding about the mind is deeply wrong, and that some or all of the mental state posited by common sense do not actually exist. So whatever we are understanding about the mind is wrong. And this theory claims that folk psychology, our ordinary common sense understanding of the mind, is hopelessly flawed and will eventually be replaced or eliminated by the alternative. So this is usually an accomplishment that will be made by neuroscience, the study of the brain and the nervous system. Now, this dates back to 1960s. So Descartes famously challenged much of what we take for granted, and he insisted that we can be confident about the contents of our mind. And this eliminating materialistic go further than Descartes on this point, because they challenge the existence of various mental states that Descartes took for granted. So they might agree that folk psychology works to certain satisfaction, but claim it will be replaced. Now we have idealism. Idealism is an explanation that suggests that reality is kind of idea, it is kind of spiritual. And we have the famous idealist George Berkeley, who says that whatever I perceive, that only exists. So yeah, so this theory, like this theory is quite, quite understanding the idea as an argument. So instead of all mental concepts being actually physical, whatever the way, the opposite may be true. So instead of whatever we see around, whatever we perceive around, it's physical, we can say that whatever is in our mind, whatever is in the mental, that is truly exist, and the physical should be explained in terms of the mental. So this idealistic concept, uh, like any other monistic theory, it does not give the explanation of the problem of mind and body interaction, but it definitely brings us again towards only one substance, and that is the idealistic. So monism is particularly, monism, particularly cyclism, is not without its share of criticism. So we have says that we have found something which is beyond physical. So we cannot say that everything is physical. We cannot say that everything could be understood in the area of physicalism. So again, if we have to understand the monism, we have to look it from the perspective of idealism. We have to look it from the perspective of eliminativism, where we are claiming that whatever we are understanding about the mind is wrong because of the common sense theory. If we are eliminating everything as unreal, ultimately we are going to eliminate mind also as unreal. And also we have theory of functionalism, that whatever we want to work upon, either the mind or the body, we have to know their function so that we can understand it. And we have identity theory. So whatever we want to understand, we should be having the identity of it pre-installed in our brain. If we don't know, or if we are not aware of its identity, then of course we cannot make any progress in the future. So this is about the monistic, and now dualistic. Now this dualism and this theory would be traced back to Plato and Aristotle. Now, it is not precisely formulated or presented, but there is a systematization in the writing of Rene Descartes. And in the philosophy of mind, dualism is like a relationship between mind and matter. So there is a kind of interrelationship and relationship between mind and matter, and this kind of interaction is called the dualistic theories. Now, dualistic says that there should be more than one predicate to make sense of the world. If you want to understand the world only by understanding the mind, you cannot understand it. If only you say that everything could be reduced to the physical, you cannot understand the world. Because if you just say that everything is reduced to physical, you cannot identify if a person is happy or not happy. Because happiness, if you're trying to reduce it to the physical predicate, such as the brain state or something, then you will also find that many of the people, they have their good life, their good brain states, but still they don't feel happy. So what exactly is the happiness? What exactly is its theory? We cannot just rely on the biological processes for understanding it. So this is a common problem, the mind and body problem, which is opposite to the monism and which help us to make a better sense of the world. Now, we have another kind of dualism, which we call the substance dualism. Now, substance dualism says that there are two different types of substances. These are not just predicates or properties, but these are the substance. And these are the two different kinds of substance. And these substances are something which are the collection of the properties. So it is the thing which possesses them. It is the thing as it is. So the mind is not just a collection of thought, but it is that which thinks, that which has them, an immaterial substance over and above its immaterial states. So substance dualists argue that the mind is an independent substance, and the property dualists argue that the mind is a group of independent properties that emerge from and cannot be reduced to the brain. Now, let us find a solution to the problem of interaction. So we now understood that we have a mind-body problem and there is no conclusion yet. So we and the thinkers have found it very problematic to know the hard problem of consciousness, because we don't have any clue about how the physical neutral properties give rise to the mental faculties. We don't have any clue that how the mind and the body interact with each other. We don't have any idea that how do thoughts cause actions, or how do unconscious fantasies cause psychomatic illness. How do thoughts impact on particles of matter, and how do material impacts cause thoughts? Why do we have any experiences at all, especially the experiences of other minds? So this problem of mind and water are kind of influencing each other. And so we have to consider this. Now, considering this case of dualism, it will help us to find out the proper solution of the mind-body problem. Now, again, we have interactionism. Here, we have understood that if mind and body were distinct, then how they are interacting each other. So this interactionalism theory given by Descartes says that this mind and body, they are two, they are separate, but they casually interact with each other. And here he also has said that mental event can be the cause of physical event, and physical event could be the cause of mental event. For example, a pinprick causes pain and the pain causes screaming. So these are the dualistic position, which is of the view that give existence to two substance, the body and the mind. In the here, the physical events takes place and in the one, and mental events in the other. Well, the two series of events can interact causally. Now we have epiphenomenalism. So where we understood that in Cartesian dualism, it is argued about two interactions, a two-way interaction between mind and body, and all dualists do not hold on to the same view. So there are epiphenomenalism, which holds the view that the interaction is one-sided. They argue that the mental events are caused by or byproduct of the physical events, and it does not work the other way. That means mental events are caused by the physical events, but physical events may or may not caused by the mental event. So this is the something. So the smoke is a byproduct of the factory's running, whereas it actually does not cause the running of the factory. So this theory holds that the view that the mental events are caused by physical events in the brain, but they have no effect upon any physical events. They claim that the mental events play no causal role in the process. So this is about epiphenomenalism. And now we have vocationalism, which is a theory about causation. And it says that the created substance cannot be efficient cause. So all the events that takes place around, we say that it is caused by God. And following Descartes' death, some philosophers like Malebranche, he tried to address the problem of interaction, holding on to a fact, the dualistic view, we have neither body nor mind, or mind or body. This was causally related, and two were in fact having a divine interaction. On every occasion in which an interaction occurred, the intervention of God was required to explain it. So the theory states that the illusion of the efficient causes between mundane events arises out of God's causing of one event after another. So this is about occasionalism. And now we have parallelism, which says that the mental and physical events occur in parallel, but that these never involve causal interaction. They accept that the mind-body interaction is deeply problematic and there is no direct causal link between the two. The mind does not affect the body and the body does not affect the mind. This solution was proposed by Leibniz but did not have much relevance outside the theological perspective. He argued that some kind of pre-established harmony between the two makes it look like having mutual interaction, but it is nothing but a coincidence. He claimed that no interaction or causation was necessary because the two clock that kept the same time, behavior of the two substance has been synchronized. So parallelism claims that though there is a correlation between the two, there is no causal interaction between the mental and the physical. Body and the mind do not interact with each other, but simply run alongside the one another. So these are some of the modern Western thinkers like Descartes, who has worked on the nature of mind and body. Descartes in the discourse that the mind-body distinction directly followed from the cogito argument. And he claimed that mind could survive without the body. And as per the definition of substance, nothing other than a thing which exists in such a way as to depend on two other thing is for its existence. So mind has thought as its property and extension is that of matter. Mind and body were considered separate by Descartes as the two he believed could exist independently. So this distinction is made based on their completely different nature. In the second sense of ascribes that modes are entirely expanded and thoughtful, exultant and thoughtlessness things in the world. Now we have Spinoza. Spinoza does not hold on the view that man is a combination of two substances. He is like mind and body and nothing but two expressions of one and the same. So this thought and extension. So this mind-body problem and this question of the interaction between two does not arise. And according to him, there is a corresponding idea to every extended body and the vice versa. Now, after this, we have John Locke. John Locke, whose ideas like distinction between the mind and body both explains identity in terms of thinking. Locke here considered persisting through thought, unlike Descartes of considers thought at a given moment. So Hume, we have two different kinds of event, mental and physical. He does not describe different substances. He considered thus mind to be no more than a collecting of perception as a body, a collection of sensible qualities. Hume appears to be advocating a dualistic distinction between object and belong to the fundamentally different categories. So this was all. And last is Berkeley. Berkeley, monist who believes in the existence of the mind alone. So Berkeley adopts Descartes' cogito, and instead of the word matter, he uses the term sensible things. He defines it as a collection of sensible qualities which are immediately perceived. And he argues that the sensible properties are properties of mind and not objects. So he claims that there cannot be anything independent of mind. Berkeley, he does not accept two different notions of properties like Descartes. While examining the perception of things, but Berkeley claims that whatever information he has are all secondary properties which are functions of his mind. So we have some keywords here like elimination. A common sense understanding of the mind is hopelessly flawed and will eventually be replaced or eliminated by an alternative, better explanation of the physical world. Then we have parallelism. It is a view that the mental and physical phenomena occur in parallel, but that these simultaneous never involve causal interactions. Okay. So thank you so much for watching this video.